I think the biggest problem is we're not talking to men, and we're not telling them, look, there's two things men want to be. They want to be protectors of their families and providers for their families. That's what most men want. And as Democrats, we don't want to talk about that because it looks like it's excluding other people or putting other people down or some other bullshit. That's not true.
Charlie Stone, your host, and today I'm pleased to have Adrian Fontes, the Secretary of State of Arizona, a great state. I've traveled it quite a bit, love Tucson, love Phoenix, but also I love Bisbee. Have you been to Bisbee? In the mountains.
Bisbee is Arizona's Whoville.
Yeah, it's crazy fun and interesting
It's insane.
And bizarre. Right.
And it's like it's built on these super steep hills, and some of the houses don't have, like, you got to walk upstairs to get to the. It's crazy.
and I know they had a fire recently, and that wasn't good, but it has a certain charm to it. So, and I don't think you're taking credit for all of that, but I will say thank you for your state. It's a great state.
And Bisbee had the best small public library in America 4 years running.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I was in that. I was there with my wife. It was lovely.
It's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm curious. You have in most of your literature, and other people write about it, your family has been in America for 300 years. Is that correct?
Probably a little more. And when you say America, we'll say America, like this side of the world. Yeah.
This side of the world. Well, I'm curious because some of my lines have been here for a while. I may or may not admit that some of them were at Salem, Massachusetts. I apologize. But why do you make that an issue? What is the purpose of sort of presenting that fact when you introduce yourself? I'm just curious.
Well, I think it's important for people to know or have a perception about what's important to me. You know, when you tell people your story, they can learn about your values, what's important to you. It shows that I value the service because I talk about, one of my ancestors was an alferez in the Spanish cavalry, which is a lieutenant. I talk about my great-grandfather who had to learn how to speak Yaqui in order to marry his bride, my great-grandmother. Yaqui is one of the local tribes here in northern Mexico and southern Arizona. So I think it grounds the person when you talk about that long history. And one of the sad parts about the United States of America is there are a lot of people who don't know their personal history more than a generation or two back. And I think that's unfortunate. Is it a fresh start from a different place in a different time? Yes. But there's that anchor that gives you sort of your identity. Like, I knew 5 of my great-grandparents when I was a kid. Now, of course, they passed away when I was young, but that's an important part of who I am, and that's why I talk about it. That's why I bring it up, because I think that folks can understand the value that I put on history, on self-awareness, and on family.
You obviously had served our country as a Marine. First of all, thank you for your service. What does it mean to you when you see Marines deployed in Los Angeles for what most people describe as sort of domestic crime fighting? Where are you on that?
It breaks my heart because there's Marines out there who need to be doing a lot of other things. Look, the Marine Corps is designed to go out and kill people. That's its job, right? We're first to fight. It says so in our Marine Corps hymn, first to fight for right and freedom. But look, this is a job for cops. This is a job for, look, if you're here illegally, it's a civil violation. If you re-enter illegally, then it becomes a criminal violation. But how do you know that unless you've gone through some due process? Moreover, how do you know that when you're walking into a restaurant to go grab a bunch of dishwashers, that these are the violent criminals that folks voted to take off the streets? Like, folks didn't vote to take a bunch of maids out of hotels. Folks didn't vote to take a bunch of butchers out of meat packing plants. They voted to go get those bad guys, right? The ones who are actual criminals. And that's how we voted as a country. And okay, that's fine. But when that vote turns into, let's go get gardeners and let's go get a bunch of guys who are standing on a street corner looking to go do some work, like, is that the murderer and rapist that you thought you were voting to deport? Or is that the guy who may have been flying under the radar for a few years trying to support his family? And I'm not saying these are saints. I'm not saying that everybody's perfect, that you should never arrest anybody. What I am saying is this: As to the deployment of American military killers, which is what Marines proudly are, thank you very much, to put them on the streets to do civil law enforcement, that's kind of an insult to the Marine Corps. It's kind of an insult to those men and women who've been trained to fight and kill and let God sort them out. And that's what the Marine in me is thinking. Like, how dare they demean my Marines and my Marine Corps in such a way for that type of activity?
You obviously, we'd mentioned your heritage and 300 years, and you were bringing up ICE, right? Massed ICE, taking people off the streets. I think you'd mentioned without due process or insufficient due process. Just give me a sense of, like, personally, when you see that, what's going through your head?
See their faces. If they're so damn proud of the work they're doing, show me your face, your name, and your badge number. If this is just a civil thing and they're just investigating, why are you wearing a mask? Like, what are you afraid of? My family and I, in not too long ago, and going back years, have suffered all kinds of threats, all kinds of abuse. I've been doxxed. I've had people show up at my house. I don't wear a mask to go to work because I know I'm doing good work. I know I'm doing legal work, and I know I'm doing things the right way. But if you have to hide your identity as a law enforcement officer, you're not serving the public. You're subverting their trust. Now, just the fact that you take off the mask and you put their name and badge number on their uniforms, that, for me, would be fine. Because then if there was any abuse, I'm not saying there was, but if there was any abuse, then you could go back to the individual bad actors. We know in every bunch there what might be. You can investigate properly and you could have some justice, because justice applies to everybody, not just people, right? It applies to cops. And we've seen some stuff. But at the end of the day, you're handcuffing Justice, Lady Justice, with her book and her sword. You're handcuffing her when you don't have any identity of these folks who are out there doing these raids. And that, to me, is the most important thing. Justice applies to everyone. On the Supreme Court building is inscribed in marble, equal justice under law. That applies to everyone. Even those rare occasions where you have law enforcement that might break the law themselves or act badly. Because we've got to keep everyone in check, not just the politicians, not just the lawyers, but the cops and the teachers and the gardeners and everybody else in the world.
Well, let's move into that. In Arizona, unlike Illinois, which is a secure blue state, in Arizona, you're sort of the microcosm of the battle that's occurring, right? Biden won Arizona by about 10,000 votes. I think you were the Maricopa County recorder or something at that point.
Yep,
and then in 2024, Trump won with about 200,000 votes. Give me a sense of what you witnessed in 2020 in that race compared to 2024. What was the difference?
Well, in 2020, I was the Maricopa County recorder. For those who don't know, Maricopa County is the second largest voting jurisdiction in the United States of America, behind only Los Angeles County. But 2.5 million voters in just this one county. And I was actually on the ballot in 2020 for my own reelection. And I lost. And Joe Biden won. And other people lost and other people won, and we ran the election. Turns out it went just well. It went fine. Everything happened the way it was supposed to happen. All the audits worked out just fine. All of the checks and balances that we have built into the system worked out just fine. And we had a good election. Fast forward 2 years, I run for Secretary of State. I win the office. Now, fast forward again to 2024. Donald Trump wins the presidency. And same thing happened. People voted, we counted their votes, and I certified the electors for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. That's what happened. That's my perception of what happened in the election as an election administrator. Now, that's my job as an election administrator. Okay? That's my duty. My opinion as to the races where people won and lost might be a little different than some people's. I certainly had a different opinion about who should have stayed on as Maricopa County Recorder in 2020. And in 2024, I had a different opinion about who should be the next president. But that doesn't mean that my duty was violated or that my opinion impacted that, because I swore an oath. I'm a guy who believes in that sort of thing. And I have a job, and my job is to run the best possible elections we can. And we did a great job in Arizona. Let me tell you a quick story about how well we trained into it. We were looking towards the potential for disruption. We've been, getting pinged by a lot of folks in a lot of different areas, and folks all over the country were nervous about how 2024 was going to go. We prepared so well in Arizona. We worked closely with law enforcement, with all our county officials. We even had a tabletop exercise with members of the media so that when things happened, they would know how to communicate better to the public to share the information about our activities. We had 15 bomb threats on election day in Arizona in 2024, 15 of them at polling places, county election offices, and other places. And we had minimal, if no, disruption because we trained for it. We prepared for it. And so the execution of our election was picture perfect. It wasn't perfect. There's always something that happens. But it was great for the vast majority of all of Arizona's voters. What do I think about the outcome? That doesn't really matter because that's my opinion. But my duty was fulfilled, and that to me was the important thing.
We appreciate you fulfilling your duty, but it's just you and me talking, right? No one's going to see this. But like when you certified the election in 2024 for Donald J. Trump, what did you wish the Democrats had done differently? Just as, you sign it.
God, how long do we have?
Well, just give me the top level. I mean, in some ways, the Democrats need to talk about this, right? Because they're going up for another election. So what do you think the Democrats need to learn from their loss in 2024?
Okay, well, we'll put duty aside and the secretary's office aside. Now I'll talk to you as a Democrat, a statewide elected Democrat. Democrats need to stop being afraid of their own friggin' shadow, and we need to go on the attack. We need to attack the lies and the liars. We need to attack the predators. We need to attack these people who are constantly breaking the law and cheating to try to make it so that they can get in political power and stay in political power. And we've got to stop being mealy-mouthed the way that we address the American public, okay? If you look at the list of crimes and misdemeanors committed by folks across the country who hold political office, there's an absolute imbalance that we don't talk about. All right. I mean, look, there's one sitting in the White House with 34 felonies. That's not unreal or untrue. It's real. We don't focus on the difference in values and principles enough, number one. Number two is we've isolated groups of people who naturally benefit from our policies. Okay, let's just put it out here. Look, I'm wearing a carpenter shirt today. It was laundry day, but I wear this once in a while. I'm a big supporter of labor. Okay, the carpenters, not unlike the Teamsters, the pipe fitters, the trades, all the other unions, IBEW, AFL-CIO, they have so many Republicans among their ranks right now, which doesn't make any sense because the Democrats are the pro-union party in all of their policies, in all of the way they act when they're in office. The Republicans are the anti-union party. That's the distinction. Why in the world would you be a part of organized labor and vote for a Republican? That doesn't make sense to me. And the same reason we've lost those guys is the same reason we've lost cops and firefighters and farmers and men across the country, because we're not talking to, I think the biggest problem is we're not talking to men, and we're not telling them, look, there's two things men want to be. They want to be protectors of their families and providers for their families. That's what most men want. And as Democrats, we don't want to talk about that because it looks like it's excluding other people or putting other people down or some other bullshit. That's not true. What we're doing is by ignoring men's issues and ignoring the fact that men just want to be protectors and providers, what we're doing is we're saying, you guys don't matter in a partnership, in a marriage, in a community, in a relationship. You guys are just over there on the side. And guess what? The other political side is grabbing them. and they're grabbing them illegitimately, and they're grabbing them and they're shoving policies down their throats that don't benefit the protection of their families, that don't benefit that they can provide for their families. When was the last time the minimum wage was raised nationally? When was the last time union protections were bolstered so that those hardworking folks could raise a family with one paycheck? There was a time when we paid teachers enough so that a high school science teacher could have a wife, 2 kids, a car, a house, and 2 weeks of vacation every year and retire comfortably. Because we respected teachers, but teachers' unions have been so vilified by Republicans, we can't even pay teachers enough to have just one job, much less support a whole family. The notion of men and our role in society has been squashed by the Democratic Party. Now, does that mean men are better or bigger or have to have the spotlight? No, because most men don't want the spotlight. But they do want to be recognized for the fact that they want nothing better than to be able to protect their family and provide for their family. And that's where I think Democrats have missed the boat.
You better be careful. Someone are going to call you a traditional dad. Be careful out there.
Well, me and my 5 kids. 2 stepkids.
Just a couple more questions. As you look to 2028, do you see any Democrats in the field that you are tending to align with that sort of articulate your viewpoints for president?
No, because I've got a re-election in 26 and I don't give a tinker's darn about what happens in 28 right now. I literally have not thought about it. I've seen other people talking about this and that, and I'm like, okay, that's great. I got to get reelected before I care about in 26, before I care about what happens in 28.
I Googled tinker's darn. I don't know what that means, but I like how it sounds. All right.
Well, old-fashioned words because I'm an old guy.
All right, Secretary. Thank you so much. One last question. The show's about the unknowns. What's unknown that nobody really knows about you?
Well, people have been starting to find out about this a little bit. They didn't really know it back in the day, but I was the lead male vocalist in the mariachi at Arizona State University when I was an undergrad. And I've performed here and there. In fact, the version of the Village Voice, the New Times here in Arizona once rated my mariachi the best mariachi in the Metro Phoenix area. So
well, you just can't you can't lay that out and not perform. Can you sing us out? Can you give us a few?
I can lay it out and not sing out because I've talked so much. I'm just like dry voice. So let's tease it for the next time. How about that?
All right. I appreciate your time and thank you very much. And please come back when you are ready to share the pipes with us.
You got it. You can let me know what tinker's darn means at that point too, because I don't know what it means either.
I don't either.